town of Duskwood sat nestled on the edge of a sprawling ancient forest. To the locals, the woods were not just trees and shadows, but a place of whispers, strange voices that carried on the wind, too faint to comprehend, yet too unsettling to ignore. No one ventured into the forest after dark, and even during the day the brave avoided the hollow, a clearing deep within the woods where sunlight rarely touched the ground. Clara, a journalist for the Duskwood Gazette, was new to town. She had heard the stories, of course, but dismissed them as folklore. "Every small town has its ghost stories," she said to her editor, a grizzled man named Marcus. "It's probably just kids scaring each other." "Maybe," Marcus replied, his tone thick with warning, "but don't let your curiosity get the best of you. Some stories stick for a reason." Curiosity was Clara's fuel. When she overheard locals whispering about recent disappearances near the forest, she knew she had her next story. Armed with her notebook, camera, and a flashlight, Clara decided to investigate the hollow. Clara arrived at the forest just before dusk, the setting sun casting long, skeletal shadows through the trees. The air grew cooler as she ventured deeper, her boots crunching against fallen leaves. The further she walked, the quieter the forest became, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. She found the hollow as darkness fell. It was eerily symmetrical, a perfect circle of dead grass surrounded by towering pines. In the center lay a stone altar, weathered and cracked, adorned with strange carvings that seemed to shift under her gaze. The whispers began as soon as she stepped into the clearing. Soft, insistent murmurs that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. Clara's flashlight flickered. "Great," she muttered, smacking it against her palm. The light stabilized, but the whispers grew louder. She raised her camera, snapping pictures of the altar and the carvings. Through the lens, the symbols seemed to glow faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Stay as long as you like," the wizard advised. "Here." She set her palm down on the stone. "Stay as long." A sudden rustle behind her made Clara spin around, her flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. "Hello?" she called, her voice wavering. No answer, just the whispers growing ever louder, forming almost words that brushed against the edge of her understanding. "Huh?" As Clara inspected the altar, she noticed a faint trail leading deeper into the woods. Against her better judgment, she followed it. The trail ended at an old crumbling cabin, its windows dark and gaping like empty eye sockets. The door creaked open as she approached, revealing a room cluttered with strange objects, jars of unidentifiable substances, bundles of dried herbs, and a book bound in cracked leather. The book drew her in. Its pages were filled with symbols and diagrams, accompanied by text in a language she didn't recognize. One diagram depicted the hollow, with lines radiating out like spider webs, connecting to other locations in the forest. Another showed a figure standing at the altar, surrounded by shadowy shapes. A loud thud upstairs made Clara jump. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The whispers were inside the cabin now, circling her like unseen predators. Summoning her courage, she climbed the creaking stairs, her flashlight trembling in her grip. The second floor was a single room, empty except for a mirror that stood against the far wall. The frame was ornate, carved with the same symbols as the altar. As she approached, Clara's reflection began to warp. Her face twisted into a grotesque grin, her eyes darkened to empty voids. She stumbled back, the whispers crescendoing into a deafening roar. Her reflection stepped out of the mirror, a shadowy doppelganger that moved with jerky, unnatural motions. Clara turned and fled, her screams swallowed by the forest. Days later, Marcus found Clara's camera near the altar. The photos she had taken were disturbing, blurry images of shadowy figures surrounding the hollow, and the final picture, Clara standing at the altar, her face twisted into the same grotesque grin as the thing in the mirror. The town mourned her disappearance but didn't search the forest. They knew better. The Hollow claimed who it wanted, and Clara had ignored the warnings. Over time, her story became another tale whispered around campfires, a cautionary legend to keep others away from the Whispering Woods. But the Hollow wasn't finished. The whispers grew louder, reaching into the town itself, calling for new prey, and one by one the curious answered.